Many are calling it a cheat game. Oh, baby, the butt cheek game. Wow. What a freaking comeback for the Broncos. Drew Lock, Phillip Lindsay, Albert Okwuegbunam, KJ Hamler, and the supporting cast of the choking Chargers. And the Broncos are somehow in the winner's lounge after being down 24-3. Of course, it's the DNVR. Wow, I'm that shook. The DNVR Broncos post-game show presented by Breckenridge Brewery. I'm joined by Andrew Mason and Andre Simone, and we'll have Zach Stevens a little bit later. But I mean, Mace, can you put this into words?
The Chargers, they're going to charge her every time. And as good as Justin Herbert has been, and you know what? Maybe he didn't get it all the way done in the fourth quarter, but he kept driving him downfield. He kept making plays. Justin Herbert has got a lot of work to do to overcome the inertia of this franchise, finding ways to lose. And yeah, we'll dive into some of the personnel issues and some of the details of it, but this is the Justin Herbert era now is him looking like a franchise quarterback and the team, particularly the defense, letting him down week after week. And credit to the Broncos for being good enough to capitalize with their best quarter easily of the Vic Fangio era.
Incredible. Yeah. It's so crazy how everything can change so quickly in football. We're sitting there. The Broncos are down 24-3. The world has pronounced Drew Lock's career over. You've got the team mouthpiece, for lack of a better term, wondering if the starting quarterback is going to get benched for Brett Rippon. Everything. I mean, Drew Lock, they're digging his grave. And then, thanks to a guy who did not nearly touch the ball enough in this game, Phillip Lindsay, who finishes the game averaging 13.8 yards per carry, I believe, gets the ball finally and takes it, 55 yards?
That's right.
Yeah, 55.
55 yards. And all of a sudden, everything changes. All of a sudden, Drew Lock, who, man, I was playing with so little confidence, came out and started balling again, looking like the young gunslinger that we know him to be. The players start making plays. The defense starts making big plays. They're able to cover the Chargers downfield. And then, Drew gets it going. And all of a sudden, you go from, the darkest timeline of not only do the Broncos lose to the Chargers and Drew Lock plays poorly, but they get smacked, to the opposite now, which is now we get to have an interesting conversation about Drew Lock. And so, Dre, just your takeaways on the entirety of that comeback and also Drew Lock's part in it.
Yeah, I too am shook because that was certainly a tale of two halves. That's going to be one of the funner rewatches I've had in a long time on my game grades. Oftentimes, those can be a bit sad. This is going to be quite the rewatch. And yeah, it's, so much was on the line there. Mace mentions the most exciting quarter, certainly the most exciting half of the Vic Fangio era. I don't know, at the half, I was starting to think, what good young coaches in the college ranks would be nice to have next year. And, maybe was getting ready to watch some Zach Wilson tape at BYU, and then you have this outstanding comeback despite really a poor showing from the Broncos run defense, which is really where the Chargers came in and chargered. But, so much of, I think, Drew's struggles this season have been him putting a little too much pressure on himself, trying just a bit too hard. And sometimes you need to be in a hole, and sometimes you need one of your teammates to pick you up to just kind of relax and get back to just playing ball. He finally looked more methodical in handling pressure. Certainly some of the Chargers getting a little banged up on the front helped as well. But, he's just hitting open guys. He's making things happen on the fly. And I mean, by that 4th and 4, his confidence was sky high. I think everyone in Denver was on pins and needle. Drew Lock looked super calm. I think he knew that penalty was coming 100%, and then handles that little RPO just beautifully, completely unfazed. And, while the Chargers are going to Charger, a theme in Justin Herbert's career coming into his NFL career was that he had a little struggles late in game. You look at the clip, you can look at the highlights and the stats. Justin Herbert's career thus far has looked a lot better. You look at their win-loss records, Drew Lock has looked a lot better.
I'll say it, like, even I, in that third quarter, was worried about what was going to happen with Drew Lock. Because I was so worried about his confidence. He is a player who operates off of confidence and swagger, and you see the way he's dancing after he gets that touchdown. Those things are really important to his game. And I saw a wide-eyed Drew Lock. I saw a lot of things that were concerning me of just, man, what's going on? How is he going to get his groove back? And that is the number one thing I love about this game. Mace, I know you're going to talk about a lot of different reasons why this happened, and I think I'll probably agree with you in a lot of these areas. But what makes me feel really good about this win is the fact that after that Phillip Lindsay play, Drew Lock was able to get his confidence back. He was able to get his swagger back. And yes, did it help that Joey Bosa was out of the game? It sure as hell did. But it also shows you a little bit maybe what happens when Drew Lock can be protected, what happens when you take the leash off of him a little bit. And, I couldn't help but remember, and there's no need to compare these two players, but I couldn't help but remember, Mace, our first DNVR watches that we did for the Broncos. And it was John Elway's first comeback as a rookie against the Colts in 1983. And I'll be honest, the games reminded me a lot of each other. Just completely boring, atrocious 3-and-out garbage offense for most of the game. And then all of a sudden, the light comes on for the young quarterback. He starts getting it rolling. And, for lack of a better term, the hoop is a hula hoop for him all of a sudden. So I just love the fact that Drew was able to get his confidence back, because I was really worried of what was going to happen to him if he couldn't get it back.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, I mean, we're probably talking about kind of playing out the string here. Now, at least there's something he can build off of. I mean, part of my concern for Drew Lock going into this game, and then even into the third quarter, was here you had bad games starting to stack up on bad game, and you had, I mean, really, he could have been helped a little bit more in New England if the receivers had hung on, but even a normal drop rate would have resulted in a couple of those passes being dropped. It's not like he would have all of a sudden had 4 touchdowns. And then last week, if not the worst game of his career, certainly the most frustrating with the most on the line. Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't get himself out of that, then it's hard to see him finding a path to recover. Now, while there's a boatload of things that you still want to work on. I mean, there's still the footwork issues. Oh, yeah. There's still, everything that was an issue before is still present. Like, you remember when he threw to Noah Fant there at the end of the game, and he misses him high. And it's a classic example of he doesn't get set. He's throwing off the wrong foot. He's trying to wing it with his arm. And that's what I mean. When you go into the details of this, the stuff with Drew Lock that was an issue, it's still there, but at least now you have confidence coming from things they did do right. When he had a clean pocket, he was stepping into his throws a little more. And again, sometimes it's about taking advantage of what an opponent gives you. You're not going to be facing an elite defense every week. Sometimes you're going to be facing a crap defense. And how do you maximize that? How do you shred them? And Drew Lock did what a professional quarterback should do to what that Chargers defense was by the time Joey Bosa went out. He shredded him.
Real quick, if you were watching this on YouTube, we would love if you hit us with a like on the video there. And if you're feeling extra generous, maybe a subscribe and even click that little bell next to it. Get yourself some alerts. But definitely hit us with the thumbs up. We always appreciate those. A ton of people watching. So if anyone's new out there, we're happy to have you joining us. One of the things that I've talked about with Drew Lock and this team as a whole is that they believe in him. And I think comebacks like this are only possible when the players believe in the quarterback. And you saw how happy they were for him. You saw how happy they were as a team. But, a team has to have that internal fortitude that, to fight, to want to fight. And part of that has to do with belief in each other, belief in the teammates. And that was really on display tonight. I have to say, I was utterly disappointed in the game plan from Pat Shurmur. From the jump, it was rough.
Did someone order 3rd and 15 again?
I mean, look, Drew Lock struggled in the first half for sure, in the first 3 quarters for sure. But quarterbacks aren't going to succeed in 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 15. And he had a little bit of a role in that. But the amount of times that they went run on first down with Melvin Gordon for 1, run on second down for -1, throw, it's just sickening, honestly, to watch. It was too much Melvin Gordon, not enough Phillip Lindsay, obviously. And I was disappointed that they didn't get Albert Okwuegbunam in there until they needed him at the end when, and finally he scores a touchdown. I don't think that Pat Shurmur had a good plan for this game. And I thought he was a big part of the problem as to why the offense wasn't clicking early.
Do you think some of that early, we saw a lot of 2 tight end sets, but they were using Fant and Vanette. I think they probably want a little bit more blocking. But do you think some of that early was trying to protect Drew Lock a little bit and trying to simplify things? Because it really felt like that first half game plan was a bubble wrap game plan. Yeah. Like they didn't want him to make mistakes.
It could be. But that's not the way to go about this. That reminds me of what we were saying after the Chargers game last year and Drew Lock's first ever start. It was like, man, what were they doing early on? They wouldn't let him go. And then finally, when they had no choice to let him go, he started making plays. I think there's something to that, but the lack of Phillip Lindsay and the stubbornness of this coaching staff to try and make Melvin Gordon something that he just isn't. Is not surprising necessarily because Zach would sit there and tell me just look at the money and he'd be right. But it's disappointing to see them continuously trying to force the ball on Melvin Gordon, even late in the game when they have the 2nd and 4 and they want to run the ball. Like, why is that not Phillip Lindsay, the guy averaging 14 yards per carry at that time? It makes no sense.
Yeah, don't you ride the hot hand? I mean, that seems logical, right? If you have 2 backs and one of them is clearly hotter than the other, ride the guy who's rolling at that moment. I did not get that.
I mean, I'm sure you guys are asked about that all the time. During the game itself, I had 2 different friends text me. One's not even a Broncos friend, more for fantasy purposes. Like, why is Phil not getting more touches? Everyone asks me, and at this point, I just tell people, you and every other Broncos fan is wondering the same thing. Look, he had a career high in touches in New England, then gets the concussion the next game. So I can understand that you're trying to limit him, but they got to do something different, whether it's a bubble wrap game plan and trying to protect more. They got to stay ahead of the chains. And there were definitely some more penalties that this Broncos offense has been good about eliminating thus far, maybe helped by the refs being a bit more generous or looking at the other way in this 2020 season. But still, we saw more penalties, and that really had the Broncos stuck in the mud consistently. But I want to go back to 2 points you guys just made. We talked about in the pregame show how it was really going to come down to not so much big plays from Locke and Herbert, but those guys showing that they're able to take their games to the next level, be more cerebral, and take what defenses gave them. Herbert clearly aced that test in the first half, and Drew Lock did a really good job from the midway through the 3rd quarter on. And we got to remember, the best of Herbert really came in 2 2-minute drives at the end of the half, which is where you're going to see quarterbacks succeed the most. And as Mays said, so much that still needs to, like, all of Locke's deficiencies thus far weren't really fixed in the slightest, but we got back to seeing rookie version Locke. Calmer, better against pressure, and really just able to elevate his game when things got harder, be able to move the chains, find those tough scores when you need them. And that's the encouraging part, that in a season where we've really seen Locke regress and get into some bad habits, he was able to unlock something, I guess, pun intended, but I feel stupid even saying that. Finally getting able to get back to rookie version of what he was.
I wonder how, like, for Locke in particular, and obviously Phillip Lindsay's big run, that galvanized him. But remember, early in the fourth quarter, they have 3rd and 16, and then you hit Jerry Jeudy for 43 yards. Look, I wonder how much that sort of unclogged things for the passing game, finally getting that explosive Locke to Jeudy play that we just have not seen to this point in the season. It seemed like that just, that was the enema. That just cleared everything out.
Yeah, it was huge. And, we're going to give out our DraftKings King of the Game here. And we went back and forth on this. And I think Drew Lock certainly has a great case for this. He ends up making the 2 big plays at the end of the game. But none of this really is possible without the guy we were just talking about. And that, of course, is Phillip Lindsay. Without that carry, I tweeted out right before that drive, I said they have to at least try to get the run game going on this drive or they're going to get Locke killed out there. And they finally handed off to Phil. He bursts up the middle for 55 yards and a touchdown. And that just completely changed the game. It took a little bit of pressure. And the Broncos looked up at the scoreboard and said, we're still in this game. And I thought the defense got a jolt from that. And so in the end, had to give it to Phil here. While Drew was awesome in the end of the game, I think Phil's definitely a rightful king of the game here today.
Phil revived the team. I mean, at 24-3, the team it felt dead. I mean, you were starting to see some heads drop. You were starting to see some effort even lag a little bit from time to time. And Phil, the hard charger that he is, woke the entire team up, and you see him going to the sideline, getting people fired up. I think that matters as well. The demeanor that he brought, he's always had that chip on his shoulder and that fire, but being able to do that when everything is going against the entire team, that's also leadership. I mean, he may not have the C on his jersey. He may never be a team captain. He probably should be, but the way that he responded and the way that he exploded when the current was going against the Broncos in every way, shape, and form at that moment, that was the start of all this. I mean, Drew Lock, we're going to be talking about this comeback for a while, but what was the origin? What was the spark? What lit it? What lit the fuse? And that was Phil.
Yeah, it was Phil. And
100%.
he's I said it before the game, I say it all the time. He's the Energizer Bunny. He is the heart and soul of the team. He is the heartbeat of the team. Whatever metaphor you want to use, that's who this guy is. And Mace, I'm glad you pointed to what he did on the sideline afterwards.
Love that.
It's not just the touchdown. It's the energy that he just radiates when he makes a play, whether it's that one or just like a 14-yard carry. You just feel it radiating off of him. For him to go up and down the sidelines and pump everyone up, like, that's what this team was lacking before Phil. It's what they're lacking a lot of times beyond Phil. But this is why you have to get him involved in every single game, because when he's going, he brings that swagger to the team. I think you can actually make a direct correlation between his swagger getting going and Drew Lock being able to see that and being like, yeah, like, let's go. Like, I want to put an F in between those words, but you know what I mean? Like, they got like, you need that. That's why you need Phil so desperately, and just he has to be so involved in the game plan. I also, we haven't since week 1 seen the formation with both Phil and Melvin. I thought there was a huge lack of creativity out there today.
Well, that's true. Going back to Phil, though, I think in easily the toughest season of his pro career, he is playing the best football that I've ever seen him play. That's including his stellar collegiate career. His burst, his patience, his vision, off the charts, and it's why he's able to manufacture these monumental big plays despite very limited touches. It's been incredibly impressive, and it's been huge for the Broncos. And they're 2-3 in their last 3 games. So that's without Phil, it doesn't happen.
Awesome. Shout out to Phil. I actually wanted to make the king of the game butt cheeks, but I was shut down on that. Allie can tell you that it was a big motif of the game for me.
He would not. At the end, he screamed bloody murder. Butt cheeks!
No, I screamed butt cheeks.
Yeah, but it was screaming. I literally was like, dude, stop. Yay, but like, calm down.
It was just so perfect because after Albert Okwuegbunam made his catch, I was just like, I didn't think he caught it. And then they were doing the slow motion replay, and like as it was descending, I was just like, butt cheek, butt cheek, butt cheek.
It was the first thing. It was funny as I was watching. It was the first thing I kind of honed in on, because I'm like, okay, there's no way he got both feet in, but it's one knee, one elbow, and yes, it's one butt cheek equals 2 feet. So that's all he needed. That's a great catch by him as well, and would have been cool to see him involved earlier. But hey, it's good to see him becoming a part of this offense. Noah Fant also had some good catches as well. Man, I'm telling you, I think a big part of the future of this offense is the two of them out there together as the combo that for a brief moment Gronk and Aaron Hernandez were for the Patriots 8-9 years ago. I think there's something there that can cause matchup nightmares for defenses.
Yeah, no, I mean, it absolutely can. And again, I think maybe Zach was right. Zach earlier this week, brought up maybe they make Albert Okwuegbunam inactive again this week because they just don't want Drew to lock on to him all game, and they want him to go through his progressions. And at the time, I said that's a terrible idea. But I think maybe there's a chance that was part of the game plan for the Broncos this week. They were saying, like, we're going to take your safety blanket away and make you make plays elsewhere, which is just shocking to me. You should be trying to make things easier on Drew Lock, not harder. But finally, he gets in there because I want to know what his snap count was in the first 50 minutes of the game. It had to have been shockingly low. I don't remember him. He definitely didn't have a target early in the game. So I'm glad they got him out there late, but I'm with you, Mace. That has to be a huge part of this offense moving forward.
It absolutely has to be, and we'll get the play count tomorrow. Obviously, I wasn't keeping track of it during the game, but the first time that Albert O's name shows up in the game book, even being targeted, is on that touchdown. So you go 48 plus minutes into the game before he shows up in the stat column. Showed up at the right time, but you know what? I get maybe that notion. Okay, he does have the comfort zone with Albert O. You want to get him to go through his progressions, but you also got to think in terms of you got to win the game here. I mean, developing Drew Lock is crucial. I get that, but you know what? You're sitting here right now. If you won this game as you did, you're 3-4. You're a game back of the last playoff seed right now. You're a game and a half back of the team that's sitting in the number 6 spot. And, oh, by the way, you've got two of the teams that are in the mix for that last seed, the Raiders and the Dolphins, coming up here in the next 3 weeks. You play to win. And and Albert O being out there gives you the best chance to win. Growth is one thing, growth is good, but you got to play to win games here because you do. Because if the way the defense was playing, although there's obvious concerns about the run defense right now, playing as it did without Mike Purcell, but you've got a path here. It may sound crazy given all this team has been through, but you actually do have a path to the number 7 seed, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a commenter there, legendary astronaut Scott Carpenter, who said, I just became a DNVR member. Thank you for your support. There he is. What t-shirt should I get? Man, I mean, especially after a performance like today, and we just gave him the king of the game, it's hard to not go with one of our Phillip Lindsay shirts. I am partial towards the OG homegrown because that was the first shirt we ever created at then BSN. But we have multiple Phillip Lindsay shirts. I say pick one of those, but I'll lean towards the homegrown.
Now And I see also we've still got the Phil homegrown shirt with him in CU colors as well. So
yeah, I don't know if we have that one in stock.
okay, and well, it's just my nervousness that if the Broncos don't re-sign Phillip Lindsay long term, you want to make sure it doesn't go out of style. So Phillip Lindsay and CU is never going to go out of style. Heck, they should probably retire his jersey up there. But that's just me.
Yeah, the Broncos are. I don't think they're dumb enough to not pay Phil, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's have a little Justin Herbert talk here. Mace, what did you think of him? I was certainly impressed. A lot of good, a little bit of bad. And man, this team just can't help him win football games because he has certainly played better than his, I believe, now 1-5 record would suggest.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that first throw, you're waiting for rookie moments from Justin Herbert, and that the first interception that he had, that's a rookie moment. He locks in on the receiver. Justin Simmons reads his eyes, reads his intent perfectly. It's that you can't do that to one of the best players in the league at his position, like Justin Simmons is. So that's a learning experience for him. The thing that Herbert has that you like from the Chargers perspective is that unlike a lot of young quarterbacks, he doesn't need a huge window. I mean, sometimes you've got to coach a college quarterback out of that habit as when they get to the pros that you have to have a big window. Those windows don't exist to the same degree in the NFL as they do in college. And he already seems to have that knack of knowing, okay, if a guy just has a sliver, that's enough to deliver the ball. And as long as I'm on target, good things are going to happen. So he's got that confidence. He's got that ability to find the tight windows. Credit to Bryce Callahan for a great play on the interception there in the third quarter. Although Herbert's going to say, you know what, I got to put a little bit more on that. That thing's got to be outside shoulder. It can't come down inside. So that's one he's going to want to have back and want to do better. But then you look at plays like the touchdown at the end of the first half where he's rolling right. Malik Reed is right in his face, and he doesn't lose his cool. He's able to still have vision and see into the end zone and deliver a strike with Malik Reed bearing down on him. Reality's in the gray area. The Chargers, they're mad about this game, and Justin Herbert's going to be frustrated. But at the same time, everything that I saw today is exactly what we saw in the last few weeks, and it doesn't change the opinion that Justin Herbert is a franchise quarterback for them. Now, I think, the more interesting discussions are on Drew Lock than Justin Herbert, but I think Herbert, it's status quo for him. He's still doing very well. He had 3 touchdowns again.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is like that interception that he threw there is really unnecessary to throw that interception, and I completely. There's so many thoughts going through my head at the end of that game. That changes the game almost just as much as Phillip Lindsay and his touchdown because, Drew Lock throws just a bad interception there when he's just trying to make a play. It's not even like the safety had to go that far. Like he was sitting right over on the top of that route. So Drew's got to see that better. But, again, if Justin Herbert and the offense just scores there, we're probably not talking about this right now. And Drew Lock doesn't get the chance to turn around the narrative on him in the late stages of the game. So, again, he's a rookie. You're seeing a lot of the right process from Justin Herbert, which what you want to see if you're a Chargers person, not what you want to see if you're a Broncos person. The one thing I will say is that touchdown where he's kind of scrambling right and just waiting for the routes to come over to that side. That is that's like the number one play that you're seeing teams with really good quarterbacks score on right now. Patrick Mahomes does it all the time. Aaron Rodgers does it all the time. Drew Lock kind of did it there on the last play of the game, although it wasn't as much space around there. But that is, the difference between touchdowns and field goals in the red zone is being able to get over there, have that patience, wait for the route, and just the defense simply can't cover that many guys for that long as you buy time over there. Right,
and he's able to just be patient. He keeps his eyes forward, and he's so cool under pressure. Yep. And it's what you see on that play is what you can't coach. And that's and it's possible to be thrilled by the Broncos coming back, but also be nervous that Justin Herbert is somebody who's going to be a problem. It's just a question of whether the Chargers can figure things out around him. We joke about the Chargers right now, but I think long term they will figure some things out, but right now it's just you've got a quarterback who is doing all he can to try to reverse a losing culture, and it's a losing culture that's exacerbated by not having Derwin James, not having Chris Harris Jr. by the end of the game, not having Joey Bosa, and not having Austin Eckler. Although they certainly ran the ball effectively, although I think some of that is on the Broncos losing Mike Purcell. I think they really felt his absence today.
Yeah, what you just hope is that you have an awesome series of quarterback rivalries between Drew Lock and Justin Herbert, Drew Lock and Patrick Mahomes. So I mean, that's the hope right now, is that you have that. Drew Lock now 2-0 in his career against the Chargers, 2 walk-off field goals technically by Brandon McManus.
Yep, 2 times helped out by a timely DPI.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like the Chargers don't just lose. There's something there within their grasp that leaves them just heartbroken.
Yeah.
And the pass interference penalty right there, that was the moment. But it was a clear call. I mean, you can't complain about that if you're the Chargers, because Fackeson's got his back turned to Drew Lock. He's only playing the man. If there's any kind of contact, it is the very textbook definition of pass interference. I mean, they can only fault themselves for that.
Absolutely.
They only have themselves to blame.
I for sure thought they were going to miss the field goal, and that's how this game was going to go against the Chargers. I wasn't expecting the full field touchdown drive with the pass interference at the end. You just can't interfere there. It's just
yeah. By the way, great. And by the way, after that, just gotta say, great call at the goal line. We haven't talked about that play.
Oh yeah.
But we don't having the option there like that. We talk about use Drew Lock's mobility, and that's how you do it. Because the Chargers had to watch for him being able to get to the pylon and score. So if you've got a young, agile quarterback with good feet, that's exactly the play call that you want to get 1 yard when it matters most. We've been hard on Pat Shurmur, I think justifiably so. But before we move on, I got to tip the cap for that call. It may be the obvious thing, but it was the right call there. And I want to see more of that in short yardage type situations.
You look at these stats, man, and it just illuminates how improbable that win was for the Broncos. Most notably, 84 plays to 59 plays. You just look at the rushing yards, giving up 210 rushing yards. The Broncos had every reason to lose that game, and winning it really completely alters their season. We could really be looking back on this game for Drew Lock, for the Broncos this season, for so many different reasons, just saying, wow, that improbable comeback changed everything for the course of this season, and hopefully we're saying for the course of Drew Lock's career. I'd love to one day be looking back and say, man, I remember when people were ready to call it quits with Drew Lock, and then everything changed in that game. He got his mojo back and was off to the races that season.
Yeah, I think, and that's why we get away from the glow of this win and kind of start rewatching it. That's kind of like what Dre and I were talking about with, some of the same issues were there. Drew Lock is not as bad as he was the first 2.5 quarters, but he's probably not as good as he was in the fourth quarter. The reality on Drew Lock is going to be in between, and that's why I know everyone is going kind of week to week, moment to moment. Just let this season play out, good or bad. Get the bigger sample size, and then make the call, because there are more ups and downs to come in the next 9 games of the season. This is inevitable, and let it play itself out.
You just have to enjoy those ups and downs.
Yeah.
That's something that I've been trying to preach to Broncos fans, and I understand it's really difficult, but you have to find a way to enjoy these stages for a young team, because it's going to make it way more meaningful when they actually get it all together and put it all together. If you look at a team like the Nuggets or even the Avalanche, who have grown from the bottom all the way up to close to the top now, there's a growth period, and there's all of these young players who have to learn and need to grow together. And like wins like this are what you'll remember, and you'll look back and say, oh, wow, that game against the Chargers, I can't believe that not only was that a huge comeback win for Drew, but that was Albert Okwuegbunam's first touchdown in that game. And that was AJ Hamler's first touchdown was the game winner. Like, those are the things that make, being a fan of a team so great, is enjoying the come up. And it might feel like the Broncos are really far away right now because you got to go up against a team like the Chiefs every year. And they are. But you have to enjoy the growth process because they just aren't going to get there overnight. They're just never going to become the Chiefs overnight. They're going to have to grow. And you love to grow in wins like you did today. And hopefully they got their mojo back. Mace, let's go through. We can take down the stats now. Let's go through some of our helmet stickers for some of the maybe more unsung heroes. I know we just mentioned this guy, but I think Bryce Callahan absolutely deserves one here. Just really game-saving play, I'll say, on that big deep throw into the end zone.
Yeah, and again, it's a short throw, but he reads it well. He adjusts. And by the way, you see Mike Williams, who's bigger, stronger than Bryce Callahan, and he starts doing that hand fighting thing. And Callahan is persistent, gives no quarter in that scenario, doesn't let himself get pushed around. That's the Bryce Callahan that we've expected. The guy who is he's a scrapper, he's a smaller player, but he's going to fight you, and he's going to be kind of annoying almost to a bigger receiver like Mike Williams. But yeah, just outstanding play there. I think you gotta go with him. You gotta talk about Kareem Jackson, even though there's probably a fine coming for Kareem Jackson.
His own player? Oh, no, on the running back.
Yeah, but the hits are going to jump out, but also 12 total tackles today for Kareem Jackson overall, just all over the place. Guided missile at times. I wanted to, I'm not sure. Did we give a helmet sticker to Josie Jewell?
Oh, he was very picked on in coverage.
Yeah, he was. And he had good plays against the run, also had a penalty. I'm not sure he qualifies. I think it was a little bit too much sour to go with the sweet for him today.
Yeah, KJ, man, he was just the word I use for him, and it's just perfect, is wrecking ball. He's just a wrecking ball. He has no regard for his body or really anyone else's body out there, and it can be a negative. And hopefully AJ Boye is okay and doesn't have to miss any time, and hopefully Pope is okay and doesn't have to miss any time as well. But you just need guys like that on your defense who make guys think about them when they're out there playing. And KJ makes you think about him if he's anywhere near you.
He does. Now, that being said, the helmet sticker I'm giving the wide receiver position is his fellow Penn State alum, Deshaun Hamilton. And you know what? You talk about overcoming adversity. Drew Lock overcoming a wretched first 2.5 quarters. Deshaun Hamilton, the one thing that when everything's breaking down for him, he could do well is run block, right? And he gets called for an illegal block in the back on a Phillip Lindsay run. And it's the sort of thing that just has you throwing up your hands in frustration at Deshaun Hamilton just only being defined by mistakes, penalties, drops, etc. He played the best 15 minutes of his football life in the fourth quarter today. And when he had that 40-yard catch and run for a touchdown, I had the flashback to the Charger game last year when he was also open down the middle for what looked like a sure touchdown, and he dropped it. And today, he brought it in. So, Broncos country has been justifiably hard on Deshaun Hamilton, and even hard today, but give him credit for bouncing back in a big, big way and making a difference in this game. He gets a sticker.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the things you love to see. It's why we love to see Garrett Bowles getting his stuff together, although unfortunately a little bit of a full step backwards for him today. 3 penalties is really tough. But hey, in a win, you'll just say you'll maybe attribute it to the fact that Mike Munchak couldn't be there and hope that he gets back on the right track. Or if if you're thinking of this from a long-term perspective, you say, well, those 3 penalties might have saved the Broncos some money long-term if they want to sign up Garrett Bowles long-term. The the catches to targets number isn't what you want to see here. But I'm going to give one to Jerry Jeudy because I thought he made big plays in big moments, especially that one that you mentioned, that kind of, like you said, unclogged whatever was going on for Drew Lock. It was a 43-yard catch. He ends up with 4 catches for 73 yards, averages 18 yards per catch, which you like to see him making those big plays. But I thought you saw him just be a little more like himself out there today.
Yeah, the potential was there. It was more that you finally saw some flashes really result in some big moments. And again, I mean that play, that you may look on that back on that play if the Broncos do take this and build off this next week in Atlanta and beyond. You may that may be a play that kind of like Phillip Lindsay, you look back and say, okay, that was that was a turning point. And again, that's what you're supposed to do against a secondary that's playing without Derwin James, playing without Chris Harris Jr. You've got to, you've got to capitalize when you've got a weaker opponent that should be on the ropes in terms of personnel. So that woke things up. I mean, really, if Jeudy doesn't have that 43-yard catch and run there and getting the Broncos into scoring range, I mean, they're punting. The Chargers probably drive to a field goal on the series that follows, because I mean, what's interesting about the Chargers in the fourth quarter, they had 2 series and one went 46 yards and one went 60 yards and both went for field goals. So the Broncos, while they were holding up in the red zone, they weren't exactly stopping the Chargers in the fourth quarter. So the impact of Jerry Jeudy's catch and run just for keeping the defense off the field was profound.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a helmet sticker to the combination of Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed, who I would argue are having as good of maybe a better stretch right now than Bradley Chubb and Von Miller ever had together.
Yeah.
What are we at? 6 sacks in 3 games for the combination of them, or even more?
Well, we're going back to the Patriot game, right? Not the Jets game. I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me right now, but they both finished with sacks. I mean, I'm not going to give Bradley Chubb a helmet sticker because 2 15-yard penalties. Yeah. Can't do it. Sorry.
Fair.
I mean, and that face mask on Justin Herbert when he was going into the line, that felt like a potential killer when it happened, a killer of dreams. But then again, you're going against the Chargers. They're going to find a way to give you another shot.
They always do. They always find you another way. Man, what a day. Can't believe we're sitting here right now having this conversation, because I was very much expecting to have the ultimate downer conversation of, okay, yeah, it's really looking bad out there. What's the rest of the season look like? You're 2-5. You're out of it. I mean, it is just, I can't believe football can be like this. Just anytime you think you know what's going to happen, you are wrong.
Yeah, and now the narrative here changes. We look at we've talked about these 4 games kind of in a cluster here. They're all winnable games. They're all losable games. They're teams that are kind of in the Broncos class. So now you go to Atlanta. You go to Atlanta having won 3 out of 4. And yes, I get the fact that you beat 3 teams that are 2-5 or worse in the Jets, Patriots, and Chargers. That matters. Atlanta's another team that is worse than 2-5. They're 2-6. But it's a fascinating game because the Broncos have won 3 out of 4. And Atlanta is a Todd Gurley mental lapse from winning 3 consecutive games with Raheem Morris on the job as head coach. And they were losing close games before. Atlanta is the classic team that, even though they kind of like the Chargers, they find a way to melt down at times, and they nearly gave the game to Carolina on a platter on Thursday night when they missed the PAT. I think we all kind of thought the same thing when that PAT missed and kept the Panthers within 1 score. Like, well, here we go again. But Atlanta is better than its record, and so it's a game that you look on the surface and see 3-4 versus 2-6, but it's really a fascinating matchup, and it's not one the Broncos can take lightly. I would say overall, as a team, the Falcons are probably better than the Chargers, in part because their defense is playing a lot better now since Raheem Morris moved up to the head coaching position.
Yeah, you really hope that AJ Boy is going to be out there next week.
Oh, yeah.
The combination of Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley is just disgusting. It looked so easy for them at times against the Panthers last week. Yeah. So you really hope that he's going to be okay, and hopefully we'll get some updates here. I just got an update from Zach that he'll be joining us here any second. So we'll look forward to that. See if we can get some updates on some of the injuries here. Maybe even an update on Vic Fangio's injury, as it looked like he had something going on there on the bridge of his nose.
Yeah, it was like he had a bandage there, and he went from wearing the face shield to wearing the kind of the scarf, the gator kind of thing. I have not been following on Twitter right now, so I did not see that he talked about it. Let's see what happens if I search Vic Fangio bandage. Oh, okay. According to Lindsay Jones of The Athletic, Vic got bumped around after one of the interceptions.
In this game?
Yes, and that's why he had the big bandage on his nose.
It must have been.
He started off with the face shield, and then he went to the face mask and kind of the neck gaiter pulled up over his mouth and nose.
Oh man, that's awesome! I hope there's a video of him mixing it up with like Justin Simmons out there.
Oh my gosh! Hey, but hey, everyone's playing hurt, right? Whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it takes. I'm just, I can't wait to rewatch that game. I'll skip the first half because that just doesn't sound intriguing to me. But I'm excited to see what it looks like in the second half and see those guys and just watch those plays again. They made some big plays. And like I said, when you're on the come up with the team, you just want to see the guys make plays. And from Jerry Jeudy to Phillip Lindsay to Deshaun Hamilton to Albert Okwuegbunam to KJ Hamler, you saw the young guys make plays, and that's awesome. All right, we got our guy, so let's bring on Zach Stevens coming to you from Empower Field at Mile High. Zach, how you feeling, my guy?
Fellas, oh my goodness, just absolutely electric. I mean, this is a high that Broncos country is going to ride all the way until next week. And guys, this is a high that as long as the Broncos keep going, that it is going to be felt for a long, long, long time. And not just for the Broncos, but for Drew Lock. Not just for Drew Lock, but for KJ Hamler, for this defense, for this young offense, guys. They really believe that this was the turning point in everyone's career on the young offense. And man, it really could be. And that is just unbelievably exciting of what this could mean.
Yeah. First, I want to hear just some of the quotes from after the game, and then I, of course, want to get your take on just what happened and specifically Drew Lock. But anything notable that we need to know from after the game?
Two huge things, guys, that came out and that just continued to echo. One, obviously, Phillip Lindsay's 55-yard touchdown run was the play of the game. That was the turning point for the Broncos, for the offense, for the defense. The defense knew when they got that touchdown that they had a chance and that they were going to be able to come back. Phil knew that someone needed to get that big play for them, even down big, and he did have it. And he knew it was going to be him, and he had it. That was absolutely huge. And the second big thing is Deshaun Hamilton. This is a guy that Drew Lock went out of his way. Phillip Lindsay went completely out of his way to talk about how big Deshaun Hamilton was. They said this guy needs the credit that he deserves. He was huge in this game, and I don't think there's any discounting that. And this is a guy that has probably been thrown under the bus more than anyone else, including Melvin Gordon in Broncos country, and he came up huge for the Broncos today.
Yeah, we were talking about him earlier, and I gave him one of the helmet stickers, Zach, because I looked at how he overcame a mistake. And when he had that illegal block above the waist, what is the one thing that Deshaun Hamilton does well, even when he's struggling to catch the ball? Run blocking.
Yeah.
That's why he keeps getting a jersey. And when that happened, I mean, I like Deshaun. I felt bad for him. Like, oh man, dude, the area in which you are consistently good and you have a mistake here. And then to his credit, he rebounded. He in the fourth quarter, 2 catches he started off with 2 catches for 50 yards, and then I think he had another one for 14. So 3 for 64. That 40-yard catch and run, that looked eerily like the play where he dropped it last year against the Chargers across the middle. This time he made it. Yeah, I hope it's a turning point for him.
Yeah, and it really could be. And guys, without Tim Patrick today, Deshaun was the only vet that the Broncos had at wide receiver that actually played today, and they needed him. He stepped up in a huge way. Of course, all of the rookies stepping up. Alberto getting a huge touchdown, the butt cheek touchdown, as RK has deemed it. And of course, the KJ Hamler stepping up huge with another butt cheek touchdown. I mean, just so much excitement. And guys, that's another thing that you could feel through the Zoom calls was how much confidence there is in this team. Even Vic Fangio, guys, he jumps on the Zoom calls and the first question is asked to him and Vic stops it and says, wait, no. First thing you got to do is say congratulations on the big win. I mean, that's Vic. Vic doesn't do stuff like that, you know? So Vic is pumped. This team is pumped. And man, this is something where, you know how last week we were talking about how it stinks in the NFL sometimes because you only play once a week. And so the bad gets just harped on way too much. Well, this is the time where Broncos fans are going to say, yes, let's enjoy every last second of these 7 days leading up to the Falcons game. And guys, in 1 week from now, Broncos could be 4-4 in the thick of the playoff race right now. They're not in the cellar of the AFC West, and Drew Lock is here. And guys, the other big thing coming from this was Drew Lock stood up at halftime when he said it was like a deja vu all over again from the end of last week's Chiefs game. There was a lot of yelling going on, and he said rightfully so because the offense stunk. There's no question about that. And Drew Lock stunk in the first half. Whew, it's a little tough to breathe in here. And Drew stood up and said, we need to turn this around. We just need to do our job. And he said it was a big turning point for the offense, and that's what you need from your quarterback. You need a quarterback that's going to go out, say, I'm messing up. We're all messing up. We all need to do better. And Drew did just that. In the fourth quarter, he was absolutely money. I mean, we're talking about John Elway stats, 14 of 18, 155 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a walk-off game-winning touchdown.
Incredible. It was incredible. And I love hearing that about the locker room, because that's when I thought Drew looked low out there. It was tough to watch. He just didn't look like he has confidence. He looked like he was struggling. He looked like he was just a little lost. But I love the fact that regardless of that, he went in there, dug deep, and talked some confidence into his guys out there. Then, of course, he went out there and got sacked almost 3 times in a row to start the second half, which I'm sure didn't help things. But just to stay with it, the resilience of Drew Lock is my biggest takeaway from this game. For him to just look down and out so many different times and to come back and to have a fourth quarter like that you mentioned, Zach, it's really commendable. And I really don't think it's an overstatement to say it could be something we look back on for years to come. Zach, I told you before the game that it was going to be a narrative flipper. I didn't realize that the narrative would flip it on itself within the game, maybe all the way into the fourth quarter. But I just want to know from you, how much better are you feeling about Drew Lock after the end of that game?
I think we'll know the answer to that question in 3 games from now, because what's going to happen is how bad was the first half? It was as bad as you could be. I mean, there were legitimate calls to have Brett Rippon come in for the game because there was no way that that Brett could be any worse. And you can't disagree with that. Drew was that bad, but then he was tremendous in the second half, specifically that fourth quarter, absolutely tremendous. So I'm riding the high right now, as everyone should be. But if he comes out next week against the Falcons and the week after that against the Dolphins and lays some duds, then people are going to say, well, that was a Chargers defense that we talked about before the game, very banged up, and Drew just had a good half. If he comes out, and he doesn't have to look like 3 touchdowns and no picks like he did in the fourth quarter, but if he's solid, then I'm going to say, okay, this was real. Now, I'm riding the high, and I'm going to, so I feel better about Drew. But am I ready to sign him up to the 10-year deal? No. And it's not fun to talk about that right now after the way he just played. But yes, I'm feeling a lot better. But now we need the consistency, because we knew Drew had the flash, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Coming out. That's why I wanted the Broncos to take him in the first round, because he had the flash. If the consistency is there with the flash, then you got yourself a quarterback for the long haul.
Yeah, and I think the other thing.
Really, go ahead.
Yeah, and the 4 games, I think that kind of sets up a baseline, but it's almost like you kind of have the next chapter. If he does all right, if he stabilizes over the next 3 games, ending that 4-game stretch that started today, then it's like, okay, can you pass the next test? Because then right after that loom the Saints and the Chiefs. So it's sort of it's like if he does reasonably well in those 4 games, it gives himself a chance to prove something more in those 2 that are going to be the real litmus tests against New Orleans and Kansas City.
I think for Drew, it's really just about buying himself time right now. It felt like if there was like a meter, he was like, all the way down, and then he like found a health pack, and now he's back up full. For him, he just has to keep making plays, keep showing the promise of a young quarterback, which he did in spades in the fourth quarter. It feels like he saved up, all of his for the last 8 quarters, all for that 1 quarter. But that's just what you need to see from Drew, and that's what to me this is about going forward. This is about Drew buying more time. He got his confidence back. He got his swagger back. He's dancing as they score the game-winning touchdown. Like, God, what a relief that must be for him from the way he felt just 2 quarters earlier. But you can't ignore what happened in the first half. I'd be an idiot to do so, and I'm not going to be that person who tries to, apologize for everything that happened in the first half or anything like that. What I will say is he kind of canceled it out, but he ended with a win and a comeback, and he just bought himself a lot of goodwill. I think, Broncos country is very impatient. We know this. But in the end, like, they just want to win. They just want to win. And so by winning today, he earned some good faith. I don't think he's going to change anyone's mind. There's still going to be, 17 film analysts on Twitter all week telling you about what happened in the first half. It's whatever. But what Drew Lock did was he changed the narrative, which was ready to bury him. And now he's got a fresh slate going into the Falcons game. And I just hope that Pat Shurmur and him are finally, learning to jive. And I hope Shurmur can kind of figure out what works for Drew, because I thought he really struggled with that in the first half. And hopefully Drew can just keep the momentum rolling, because everyone knows that the best case scenario for the Broncos is Drew Lock becoming the franchise quarterback.
Drew Lock looks so freaking uncomfortable that first half. It was insane. And I couldn't tell if that was because he was trying too much to go through his reads and find that third progression, get there. If that was because, he just wasn't playing well at all. If Pat Shurmur was, putting him a square peg in a round hole. And then look what they did the very final play of this game. Drew's on the run. And what did Drew say after the game? He said, I loved it. I love being on the run, and I love having the option. There you go. Do that. Do that from the beginning. Don't wait till the end of the game. Drew said that was their 2-point conversion play, something that they've had in the arsenal for a long time. You don't have to just save it. You don't have to just save that till the end. So I want to see more of that. And Drew said this after the game too. He said, giving everyone pushback outside of the Broncos locker room. He said, we've had 3 full games with this offense with normal personnel, or fairly normal personnel. Maybe we're just starting to click. Maybe people had opinions of us based off 6 games with multiple different quarterbacks and personnel. That can absolutely be true, Drew.
Yep.
But now that's when I need to see it again next week. Again, it doesn't have to be 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter over an entire game. But if you can show that, okay, we're building, we're going somewhere, then, I'm right there with you, Drew. I am right there with you. Because, Justin Herbert, his first 5 games and now 6, he had another, good statistical game for the most part. He's doing great things in 6 games. It's still very, very young for Drew Lock. He can absolutely still, become a great quarterback. But he needs to do it, and this fourth quarter was huge.
It was huge. It was awesome. And I just love that he's building that narrative, whether it's true or not, because that's something you can sell to the team. Hey, it's us against the world. No one realizes what we're building here together. That fourth quarter was everything we've worked for. Like that, Drew Lock, as a quarterback, sometimes you have to be a salesman. You have to sell a narrative to a football team. That's a sellable narrative to those guys in there. Look at what everyone else didn't think that we could do, that we knew we could do. And this is why we work so hard every week. And this is what it's going to be like from here on out. I love hearing him say that to the media, because it means it's what he's saying in there as well. And again, this could be a massive turning point for them. And we're not even mentioning the fact that Tim Patrick wasn't out there, who's been his best receiver this year. And by the way, neither was Cortland Sutton. So he's down his top 2 receivers. They just scored 30 points. Fantastic, incredible, shocking, just whatever you want to call it was. And I really hope, and I think there's a really good chance that one day we're looking back on this as a monumental game in Broncos lore. I'll even go that far, because if this team, and especially Drew Lock, I mean, it all comes down to Drew Lock. If Drew Lock ends up being who I think he can be and who a lot of people want him to be, then we will look back on this one day. And if he doesn't, well, then it'll just go, it'll go away as another fun game, like a Tim Tebow type game. But
Bingo. And that's actually who I was thinking of. It was that game in Miami when they were down 15-0 in the fourth quarter. And it was kind of similar to this game. Just, it was tedium. It was terrible to watch. And brought them all the way back 15 points in the last 7 minutes of regulation, field goal in overtime, and they win it. So is this going to be Elway against Baltimore, or is it going to be Tebow versus Miami? That's I think we're gonna have a good idea on that by the end of the season.
I think we'll know in the next 3 weeks, guys. I'm really set on these 4 games, with this one being the start of it. And you know what? Where we are with Broncos football right now, I'll take either of those. Now, of course, you want the John Elway versus Baltimore game for Drew Lock, and now you don't have to worry about the quarterback for the next 20 years. But if we're going to have a Tebow season with Drew Lock this year, bring it on, baby. Come on.
There's 7 playoff spots out there. Anything could happen. Yep. In the end, there's going to be a lot to digest from this game moving forward. And, of course, we'll be discussing it all throughout the week on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Everyone who tuned in, we'd love if you hit us with a like on the YouTube version of the stream. We always appreciate those. We appreciate the subscribes. You can sign up for the alerts, all of it. Thanks to everyone who joined us. Thanks to Breckenridge Brewery for bringing you guys these post-game lives and for bringing me the beer that I'm about to have as soon as we finish this.
Let's go.
All around, just one hell of a night for Broncos country. And like I preached, just enjoy it. Enjoy these moments as a young team tries to blossom together. This is what it's all about. And hopefully one day we do look back on this as a really important game in Broncos lore. But for Mason, Zach, I'm RK, and we'll talk to you guys soon.